Discovered, Millionaire abandoned at altar, one kind maid's heartwarming touch transformed his life. Ethan sat on a weathered park bench, the reality of his life sinking in like a heavy stone in his gut. In the heart of Silicon Valley, he'd been the man everyone envied, a 30-something self-made millionaire. The press had called him a tech genius, but now he was just a broken man left at the altar, love ripped away by a ruthless tech tycoon. Shouts of joy and laughter from passing children filled the air, but all he felt was the sharp sting of betrayal. His fiancé had chosen a life of glitz and power over the promise of forever with him. It was supposed to be the happiest day of his life, but instead, he stood abandoned. That wasteland of glitzy despair led him to Maplewood. He could still remember the scent of his grandmother's cookies and the feel of soft summer grass beneath his bare feet. But now the quaint little town seemed infused with something deeper, something bittersweet. The aroma of fresh pine nestled in the air, while the simple pleasure of neighbors greeting one another had been replaced by whispers of economic hardship. He watched the townsfolk drawn tighter together, struggling to keep their identities alive against a tide of change he once contributed to. As he wandered through the streets, lost in memories, he stumbled across Clara. She worked at the local inn, her determined spirit shining even as she wore a tired uniform that was more ragged than polished. In her 20s, Clara possessed a fierce hope that burned brightly beneath the surface, a rarity in a place that felt overshadowed by larger cities. It was easy to overlook her strength, especially for a man encased in a fog of heartbreak, but that changed one afternoon when he witnessed an unexpected display of courage. He saw her standing up to a group of bullies who taunted a young neighbor. Her voice was steady, her stance unwavering. A lump formed in his throat as he watched her unleash a torrent of words that sent the bullies scurrying. In that moment, something within him cracked. Maybe there was still hope and possibility in this small town, and maybe it wasn't too late for him. There was a connection brewing between them, an unlikely partnership waiting to be forged. Clara spoke excitedly of her dream to open a local market that would breathe new life into Maplewood, to create jobs and regain some semblance of heart in the community. As they began to take those first steps together, her infectious enthusiasm blending with his resources, Ethan felt alive again for the first time since his heart turned to stone. But just as the project started to gain traction, the whispers began. Rumors about his past and her underdog status mingled like a storm cloud hovering over their efforts. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As their partnership blossomed, so did the challenges. Ethan found himself haunted by the glimmering memories of Silicon Valley life, the skyscrapers, the meetings, and the ruthless ambition that once defined his existence. Meanwhile, Clara's tenacity wore on him, her passion pushing him to remember why he once had a fire. But with every inch of progress came the return of buried secrets he thought he could forget. And then, like a thunderclap interrupting their delicate dance, a figure stepped into their lives, someone from Ethan's past, itching to reclaim what he felt was still his. The town's hopes rested on Clara's market, but as the grand opening approached, tension hung thick in the air. Would they overcome their mounting obstacles, or would the ghosts of their past ultimately drive them apart? Ethan leaned against the cold brick wall of the building that housed the local market they were preparing to open. The chatter and laughter had faded into a distant echo as dread clawed at his chest. Who was that man? The figure from his past had appeared out of nowhere, a ghost he thought he had buried. Ryan, his former business partner, now wearing a well-tailored suit that screamed old money, stood with a smirk that sent chills down Ethan's spine. Ryan had been the mastermind behind many of their tech successes, but he was also the one who had pushed Ethan aside when his life went off the rails. Ethan had kept their relationship cordial, desperate to avoid any more drama. But now, as Ryan surveyed Clara's humble project, a familiar glint of greed flashed in his eyes. "Ethan," Ryan called, his voice oozing faux familiarity, "I see you haven't lost your touch. Or maybe you have setting your sights low with this little venture." The sneer in Ryan's tone dug deeper than Ethan expected. Clara, drawn by the commotion, emerged from inside the store. The moment her eyes landed on Ryan, tension rippled through the air. She felt it too, an intrusion into their fragile sanctuary. "Who's this?" she asked, trying to sound unfazed, but the quiver in her voice betrayed her. "Just someone who knows a thing or two about real business," Ryan shot back, his gaze narrowing on her. "You're wasting your time, sweetheart. He'll never change." Ethan clenched his jaw, anger surging. But Clara stepped forward, her posture steadying amidst the tension. "We have a vision here, one that focuses on community, not cold profit margins. Something your ego wouldn't understand." Ryan's expression soured. "Cute. But come on, this town isn't worth your time. You'll be left with nothing. Just like him." With every word Ryan spat, Ethan's past clawed at him. All the mistakes, regrets, and the way he'd let himself be pushed around. The passion that Clara embodied reminded him of why he'd left it all behind. Yet Ryan had a way of exposing vulnerabilities, both personal and professional. "Stay out of our way, Ryan," Ethan said through gritted teeth. "You're not welcome here." There was a programmatic rhythm to his conviction, but doubt gnawed at the edges of his resolution. What would it take to protect the new life they were building? As they withdrew, Ethan witnessed the gathering whispers in the crowd, more invasive than the chilly air wrapping around them. Ryan's presence was a storm cloud, brewing fears amongst the townspeople who already looked sideways at their ambition. "If he sticks around," Clara murmured, "it could ruin everything." Ethan felt the weight of that reality sinking deeply. Were they really prepared to face this? Or was it clearer than ever that his past had no intention of letting him go? Days went by, and the tension grew, palpable like static electricity before a storm. Clara worked tirelessly, pouring her spirit into the market, but Ethan could sense the weariness settle on her shoulders. They needed a trick up their sleeve, something that could balance the scales against Ryan's looming threat. As the grand opening neared, the town buzzed with gossip. Some rallied behind them, hopeful for a change. Others whispered of betrayal, of a past that shouldn't be trusted. Then, during a tense meeting under flickering fluorescent lights, a knock echoed at the door. Clara opened it to find a local journalist, eyes wide and notebook poised. "I heard rumors about the collaboration," she said, urgency in her tone. "What's the real story here? Is it true you're being pulled back into old habits?" Ethan felt air seep from the room, each breath strained in uncertainty. How much would they reveal? How could they protect what they had worked for? In that moment, the world shrank to a singular point of pressure. What would the journalist uncover? Could they confront the shadows of Ethan's past together, or would they fall victim to the very secrets threatening to tear them apart? With hearts racing, they stood at a precipice, on the brink of decisions that could change everything. The clock was ticking, and revelations waited just outside the door. The moment Clara opened the door, the weight of the world collided with her senses. The journalist stood before her like an avalanche ready to bury them in a thick layer of scrutiny. The collaboration. She pressed, her pen poised, eyes gleaming. "There's talk. Are you back in the game?" Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. This wasn't just a question, it was an interrogation. The flickering lights above buzzed unintelligibly, amplifying the tension. He stepped forward, instinctively wanting to shield Clara. "We're focused on building something here, something meaningful for this community," he said, voice steadier than he felt. "Meaningful?" The journalist scoffed, her skepticism hanging in the air. "Or just another way for you to skulk back to your old life? A quick cash grab before disappearing again?" The room felt smaller as Ethan clenched his fists. Anger simmered beneath his skin, but the truth was more complicated than her accusation. Just underneath his resolve, an insidious doubt crept in. Would they see him as nothing but a fraud, a failure escaping the chains that kept dragging him down? Clara chimed in, her voice rising above the cacophony of doubts. What matters is we're focused on helping the town. People are depending on us. Her determination struck Ethan deeply, but he could see that even she felt the looming shadows of Ryan encroaching. People? The reporter echoed, indifferent. Or just one person you're desperate to impress? She leveled her gaze on Ethan, exposing the raw, festering vulnerability beneath. The room grew heavier, bit by bit, with her pointed questions. Suddenly, another knock sliced through the tension, louder this time, more demanding. Ethan's head snapped toward the door. With a quick glance exchanged with Clara, she moved to answer. As she pulled the door wide, Ryan stood there, his mere presence sucking the air out of the room. Apologies for crashing the party, he drawled, sauntering in without invitation. I couldn't resist. Clara, darling, I didn't expect you to hang around with second-rate talent. Tell me, what are you really doing here? Ethan felt the room tilt on its axis, the very ground beneath him suddenly unstable. Ryan's piano-like composure contrasted sharply with Clara's tension. The strings were pulled tight, ready to snap. Clara bristled, stepping protectively closer to Ethan. We're trying to create something special for this town, Ryan. Something you wouldn't understand. Oh, but I understand more than you think, Ryan shot back, a glint of mischief in his eyes. Dealing with ghosts, you may want to double-check your partners. Old habits die hard. The taunt hung in the air like smoke, choking their resolve. Ethan's heart raced. He wanted to confront Ryan, to set the record straight, but fear held him back. How much of his past would surface? Would Ryan expose everything? Back to your spot in the shadows, Ethan? Ryan smirked, his gaze steady. Or are you going to pretend your life has somehow changed? The tension escalated, pressing on Ethan's chest as he fought back memories of betrayal. Clara looked up at him, searching for strength as if he was her anchor against the turbulent waves of Ryan's past. I am not the same person I was, Ethan said finally, voice steady. This time, I'm not backing down. But the doubt lingered, an unwanted companion. The journalist looked from one man to the other, clearly relishing this showdown. Quite the conflict, she murmured, scribbling furiously. But who will come out on top? Suddenly, the front door swung open again, this time revealing two figures, local business owners who had been pivotal in proposing the collaborative project. Their expressions told a different story, one of concern. We heard Ryan's in town, one said, worry stitched across her brow. We're here because we want to know what's going on. The stakes had just risen. All eyes focused on Ethan, the weight 1,000 pounds. He had to make a choice. What would he say? Would he reveal his true self, the mistakes he tried to bury, or would he protect the fragile dream they had built? The moment crackled with uncertainty. As tension swirled, Ethan could feel the very fabric of their reality fraying. With one choice, everything could either collapse or expand in unforeseen directions. Was he prepared to pull Clara, their vision, and their new lives into the inevitable storm lurking just beyond the door? The question hung heavy in the air, waiting as the dark truth closed in. Ethan's mind raced, the room spinning with possibilities. He could feel the curious gazes of the business owners drilling into him, their expectations mingling with his own fears. This wasn't just about him anymore. Clara stood resolute at his side, and Ryan loomed like a storm cloud over them. The weight of the moment pressed hard against his chest. Listen, everyone, Ethan finally spoke, his voice a mixture of fight and fragility. We're here to make something good happen. This collaboration, it's not just a project, it's a chance for all of us to come together and rebuild. He took a steadying breath, locking eyes with Clara for a split second. So you say, Ryan interjected, his tone mocking, but what are you really trying to sell? Because I see a man running away from his past, not a savior in the making. His words dripped poison, immediately drawing the two business owners' gazes over to him. "Ethan, is that true?" One of them, a middle-aged woman named Mara, stepped forward, concern etched across her face. "What are you hiding?" Ethan's heart sank. Would they listen to Ryan's castle of lies, or could he steer the narrative back into his hands? Clara's hand squeezed his lightly, grounding him. That glimmer of support ignited something in him. "I'm not hiding anything. What I'm trying to say is I had a past, a dark one, but I've worked hard to change." His voice cracked slightly, but he pressed on. "This isn't just about me, it's about our town." Across the room, the journalist's pen raced across the paper, capturing every moment, every nuance. Ethan could almost feel the click of cameras, the headlines forming in the air, still ready to skew his truth. "Change? Oh please." Ryan scoffed loudly. "You're just a good actor trying to play the part. Come on, Ethan, prove me wrong." Determination replaced his fear, hardening his resolve. "I will prove you wrong," Ethan declared. "Not just to you but to everyone who doubts us. This project is going to succeed because it's built on hope and teamwork." Laughter erupted from Ryan, shrill and mocking. "Hope? Teamwork?" He shook his head, eyes glinting with malice. "Have you seen how often that works out? People like you always come crashing down." He turned sharply to the business owners, the journalist's pen never pausing. "And you should be careful who you invest your futures with." "Stop." Clara's voice rang out, cutting through the tension like glass shattering. She stood tall, her figure radiating the strength Ethan had witnessed countless times. "This is about our town, about the people who need more than just words, they need action. We're committed to making it better. You don't get a say in this." The shift in the room was palpable. The heaviness was replaced with a subtle hope. For a moment, even Ryan appeared caught off guard by Clara's unwavering faith. Then the front door creaked open again, and this time, it was a group of young adults from the local community, faces Ethan recognized, all of whom had attended the town meetings, eager for change. "Did we miss the fireworks?" one quipped, stepping inside. Laughter broke the tension, and for a second, everyone turned to greet the new arrivals. "Just a small drama," Clara said, a spark of relief in her smile, yet, this spark was quickly smothered when Ryan, sensing a shift in power dynamics, smirked. "Oh, but trust me, this show is just getting started." Ethan felt the dread coiling in his stomach. Ryan wasn't done. The undercurrents of manipulation still swirled around them, thicker than fog. It wasn't just a battle of words anymore, it was a game of wills. And he knew Ryan played to win. Their eyes were locked on Ethan now, waiting for his next move, expecting a transformation. With the weight of responsibility pressing heavily against him, he realized he had no choice but to confront everything, his past, his demons, to protect this fragile dream. Would he summon the courage to take that leap, or would doubt unravel them all at the seams? As the uncertainty loomed, Ethan's heart raced. In that moment of silence, he knew, the storm was far from over. Ethan's thoughts spiraled, torn between the mounting pressure and the glimmer of hope. The laughter from the newcomers faded into whispers as their faces turned serious, mirroring the unease that had settled back into the room. He could feel the walls inching closer, a threatening environment fortified by Ryan's presence. "What's next, Ethan?" Mara asked, her eyes soft but probing. "You say you've changed. But can you prove it? What can you offer us that Ryan can't tear apart?" Even as she spoke, Ryan leaned casually against a pillar, arms crossed, a stormy grin etched on his features. "Yeah, show us what you've got. Talk's cheap, especially when the stakes are high." His eyes shone with a competitive glee, as if he was fully aware of the chaos he sowed. Ethan's pulse quickened. This was the moment. His entire life had led him here to fight for everything he believed in. He hesitated, taking a deep breath. "I'm willing to put everything on the line. My time, my resources, my spirit." I've connected with people who want my vision. So if you trust me, we can renovate the old community center. It can be the heart of our town once again." An awkward silence filled the room, the kind that stretched and pulled until everyone held their breath. Clara looked at him with wide eyes, a hesitant smile urging him on. The newcomers murmured amongst themselves, their faces painted with a mixture of hope and skepticism, but Ryan's laughter slashed through. "Oh, please. Even if you rehab a building, it doesn't fix a broken man. How many times will you stumble and fall? What's the plan for when you crash? Because I assure you, when the weight of your past presses down, you will crack." Anger flared inside Ethan. He thought of the countless nights he fought against the demons from his past. "You don't know me," he shot back, his voice rising. "You haven't seen the work I've done. The people I've helped. It's not just about me, it's about all of us." "Oh really?" Ryan said, his voice a low, mocking drawl. "Then why do I feel like this is all just a desperate ploy to make yourself feel important?" That hit deep. The air crackled with tension as he faced Ryan, feeling the heat of judgment press on his shoulders. The room felt smaller, suffocated with doubt. Was it true? Was he just a fraud, grasping for something he could never hold? "Enough, Ryan!" Clara burst out, stepping closer to Ethan, her eyes blazing with resolve. "People can change. I've seen it. We can create tangible change in our community. But that won't happen if we let you choke us with fear." With the spotlight back on him, Ethan gathered the shreds of his courage. "Ryan, if you want to drag me down, you have to take me on yourself. I won't back down. I will fight for this town." A ripple of approval spread among the newcomers, but Ryan remained unyielding, a predator undeterred. "You think you're bold? You will fail, Ethan. And when you do, I'll be right here to watch you crumble." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the room. Everyone spun toward the noise. One of the newer arrivals bumped into a table, sending papers flying like confetti. Gasps filled the air, but beneath that panic, Ethan spotted something, a familiar glimmer of a tablet half hidden among the chaos. As he reached down to pick it up, his heart sank there. Glaring back at him was a photo he never expected to see, a picture from his past. Ethan froze, recognition clawing at his throat. Someone had been watching him, tracking him. "Looks like the plot thickens," Ryan sneered, his smile widening. Ethan's thoughts raced, panic surging. Who had taken the picture? What else did they know? The faces around him began to blur as he fought against the whirlwind of memories and possibilities. The stakes had suddenly become higher. The storm was shaping up to be worse than he imagined, and he had to confront it, head-on. His voice trembled but steadied, "Whoever is behind this, they don't know who they're messing with." As the murmurings escalated, the stakes were undeniably raised. With every corner of the room filled with judgment and doubt. Ethan braced himself, realizing that soon he would have to confront the forces that threatened to expose not just his past, but everything he had fought for. And in that growing shadow, Ethan felt the icy grip of fear. The last vestiges of certainty crumbled as he braced for impact, not just for himself, but for everyone he loved. Was he really prepared for the reckoning that loomed ahead? Was there a way to protect what mattered most to him without losing himself in the process? Dust settled around Ethan as the room lapsed into a stunned silence, replaced only by the whisper of fabric brushing against skin. Each person seemed frozen, eyes glued to the tablet he clutched, the photo's implications heavy like a lead weight, the photo, that frozen moment from a life he thought buried, twisted like a knife in his gut. A part of him wanted to shove the tablet away, to hide from the unyielding gaze of his past. But another part, the part that had fought to reclaim his life, pressed him to face it. "Ethan," Clara broke the silence, her voice soft but firm. "Is that?" Her question hung in the air, thick with fear and disbelief. "Yeah, it's me," he replied, struggling to keep his voice steady. "From a time I wish I could forget." Ryan leaned forward, a shark sensing blood in the water. Looks like little Ethan wasn't he always so little. What's in the past? His eyes sparked with mock curiosity, the kind that craved entertainment at someone else's expense. I can almost hear the haunting tales. Care to enlighten us, or would that be too much for your reformed ego? Ethan felt heat traveling up his neck. Anger mixed with embarrassment ignited, fueling the resolve within. It's not about the past anymore. I'm here now, fighting for this community. He took a breath, the words taste bitter on his tongue but vital nonetheless. Everyone here knows that change is possible. I've seen it. A murmur passed around the room. Ethan shifted, eyes darting to Mara, who gazed at him intently, determination etched on her face. You're right, she said slowly. We deserve to hear your story, Ethan. Ethan hesitated. Once, he had clung to his demons like old friends, they had whispered deceit and despair, clung to him even in daylight. Sharing his truth felt raw and naked. But maybe it was exactly what he needed, a chance to own those shadows instead of letting them own him. He opened his mouth, but the words caught in his throat. A few years ago, I lost everything. He took a step forward. I had a choice. I could stay where I was, drowning in self-pity, or I could claw my way out. I chose to change. The laughter had faded, replaced by an urgent hush. Ryan's expression soured. So, tell us what makes you think you can actually achieve this? What's your real motive? Ethan held his gaze, unwilling to let Ryan intimidate him further. This town is struggling, just like I was. If I can rebuild myself, I can rebuild the community center. We can reclaim hope. Suddenly, a shout pierced the tension. You think you can do it alone? It was another newcomer, eyes narrowed in skepticism. What if you fail? What's your backup plan? Backups, Ethan thought, but a sharp clarity sparked in his mind. He turned to the voices spiraling in doubt. You could be my backup plan. All of you. We can do this together. Amidst the building zeal, a gnawing uncertainty tugged at Ethan. Was this truly a team willing to stand by him, or would they scatter at the first sign of trouble? Ryan regarded him, both amused and unnerved. You talk a big game, Ethan. But watch your back. The past tends to sneak up when you least expect it. A chill coursed through Ethan, but he quelled it. No one will take this away from me, he replied, a fierce determination hardening his resolve. He turned back to those assembled. Together, we defy the past. No more running. No more fear. Just as he felt the wave of energy rising, a blaring siren interrupted the atmosphere, the sound of urgency thrusting them all into a collective state of alarm. The crowd murmured, eyes wide with worry. Ethan's heart raced. Had the forces of his past come crashing in, dragging him back into darkness? He glimpsed Ryan, his smirk wiped away with a hint of concern. What now? Someone whispered, panic rippling through the crowd. Ethan resolved to meet this head-on. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. This isn't just about me. He felt renewed strength flow from the others, hands gripping wrists and shoulders, forming a bridge against the storm. The future felt uncertain, but as long as they stood united, maybe just maybe they could uncover the truth behind that siren. But as the door swung open and a figure stepped through, Ethan's breath caught. Whoever this was, they might hold the answers he hadn't even considered searching for. Ethan, the figure called, their voice familiar and unsettlingly close to heartbreak, we need to talk now. The room froze again, eyes darting from him to the stranger. Ethan's heart raced faster. Who were they? And what revelations awaited? Ethan's mind raced as the figure stepped forward, slicing through the tension like a knife. His chest tightened as he took in the familiar face, the one he thought he had left behind. Lila, he whispered, a name that echoed with memories, both sweet and bitter. She had been a few years younger then, full of light even amidst the shadows of his life. But those years had carved lines of struggle across her face. The crowd quietly parted, uncertainty lingering in the air, but he couldn't bring himself to look away from her piercing gaze. Her expression was a mixture of concern and determination, and he could feel the weight of her words pressing against his chest. "We need to talk," Lila said again, urgency pulsating in her voice, as if the very walls of the room were closing in, demanding answers. "It's about your past. And the people that it's affecting now." A cold sweat broke out over Ethan's skin. The past, those dark, tangled roots he thought he had uprooted, was looming again, ready to ensnare him at the most inconvenient moment. "What do you mean?" he asked, stepping forward, drawn to her like a moth to flame, even as dread pooled in his stomach. "They're coming back, Ethan. People from your old life. They want something, and it's not just you." Lila's voice trembled faintly, sparking a flicker of alarm in the eyes of those around them. "What are you talking about?" Ryan interjected, attempting to seize control over the unfolding chaos, but all it did was send a jolt through Ethan. The hostility in Ryan's tone was palpable, but in that moment, exaggerated and childish. Ethan's focus remained solely on Lila. "It's complicated," she said, scanning the room, her expression uneasy. "They haven't forgotten. You know that, right?" His mind tumbled back to nights spent cowering from the shadows. The faces washed over him as vividly as any dream. In the flood of emotions, he felt a stifling combo of anger and shame constrict his throat. "They won't get to me again," he declared, but even to his own ears, the bravado sounded fragile. "Ethan, listen." Lila pressed, stepping closer so they were out of earshot, the crowd a vague blur around them. "I saw something that night. Something you never knew." Ethan felt a pulse quickening, both dangerous and enthralling. "What do you mean?" But before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from the other side of the room. Jennifer, one of the newer members of their community group, stumbled into view. Her face was pale and her eyes wide with terror. "They found me. They're here." The collective gasp sifted through the room like wildfire, with panic igniting in every corner. Ethan felt his heart plummet. Who's found you?" As the crowd surged forward, Lila's grip tightened on Ethan's arm, grounding him amid the chaos. "You need to go, Ethan. You can't confront this alone. They're dangerous. Stop. No one is going anywhere until I understand what's happening." Ethan shouted, frustration boiling over. The truth was slipping away like sand through his fingers, and he could feel the desperation creeping in. "Ethan." Clara's voice cut through the din, her wide eyes flicking towards the entrance. "That siren, it wasn't an accident, was it?" A sense of dread twisted in his gut as all eyes turned toward the door, expecting some kind of storm to burst in. Suddenly, the door swung open again with a terrible creak, and a group of figures emerged, silhouettes framed by the dim light behind them. Each step they took was deliberate, a harbinger of something dark. Ethan's body stiffened, every instinct telling him to prepare for the worst. They were here, from the past he had tried to escape. But Lila's reassurance lingered in the back of his mind. He wasn't alone. "Whatever happens," he thought, "I'm not facing this dark truth by myself." But as they approached, the leader of the group stepped forward, cloaked in an air of authority and menace. "Ethan," he sneered, a smirk curling at the corners of his lips. "We've come to collect what's owed, and it's not just you this time." Ethan felt the blood drain from his face, his heart pounding fiercely in his chest. What had he brought upon himself? And could he really shield the ones he cared about from the storm that loomed? With the room at a standstill, heavy breaths filling the air, he realized the confrontation was inevitable. Choices loomed ahead, and he could either embrace them or watch everything he had rebuilt crumble. "Stand ready," he whispered to the group, rallying their courage. "This time, we fight together." But even as he spoke, the question loomed above him: were they strong enough to confront the past that threatened to obliterate their future? The tension cracked like thunder in the air as the figures advanced. Ethan's pulse quickened, each heartbeat a drumbeat of fear. The leader's confident stride felt like a countdown, and with every inch he drew closer, the walls of the room dimmed, shadows creeping in as if to claim him. Ethan swallowed, trying to shake the feeling of déjà vu. This was not how it was supposed to be. Who are these people? Ryan's voice trembled, turning to the crowd, desperate and searching for answers. Lila's eyes remained locked on the leader, a storm brewing behind them. They were once part of your life, Ethan. You thought cutting ties would save you, but they never truly faded. Shut up. Ethan snapped, anger flaring. You don't know what you're talking about. But a tiny part of him was afraid she was right. The memories that had haunted him were back, and he was undone. The leader stopped mere feet from him, the smirk fading into something colder. Oh, I know all about you, Ethan. You can't hide from who you are. You owe us a debt, and it's time we settled it. What debt? Ethan demanded, fists clenching. I left that life behind. It's over. Not for us. You made promises, whether you remember or not, and they were never fulfilled. The leader stepped into the light, revealing a scar that sliced across his cheek, a familiar face from the past. One Ethan desperately wished to forget. The room held its breath. Gasps and murmurs flared up, fragments of the past manifesting in glances exchanged between the regulars of the group. Ryder, Lila breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. Ah, so you do remember, Ryder said, his eyes glittering with malicious delight. I was hoping you would. Jennifer, still quaking with terror, reached out for Ethan, her hand trembling as if it were the only link tethering her to reality. Ethan, please, what is going on? He opened his mouth, but words failed him. How could he explain? How do you summarize a dark history defined by betrayal and revenge to those you had come to care for? Something happened a long time ago, Ethan finally managed, glancing at Lila, then at Ryder. Something I thought we could leave behind. Not a chance. Ryder shrugged, irritation twisting his features. And you should know better than to assume you're free. What you did affected everyone. You don't just rewrite history because you want to. Panic started to race through Ethan's veins. What do you want from me? Ryder smiled, a wickedly sharp grin that pierced through the chaos. We're here for the girl. That's the real reason you can't escape this. Ethan's heart plummeted. Lila? He glanced around, their eyes meeting in an electric shock of understanding. You can't take her. He stepped forward instinctively, as if to create a barrier between her and the impending danger. She's already involved much more deeply than you know, Ryder taunted, his words freezing Ethan's blood. You think she's safe? That you've protected her from our reach? Think again. Leave her out of this. Lila shouted, her voice trembling but fierce. You don't have to do this. Oh, but we do, Ryder replied, taking a step back and pointing at Ethan. You can save her, Ethan. You just need to play your part. Whatever you're planning, Ethan growled, determination flooding his voice, it won't work. Ryder chuckled, the sound cold and calculated. We'll see about that. The game has just begun. As Ryder and his group retreated, leaving the lingering dread in their wake, Ethan felt the weight of their threat settle over him like a shroud. We can't let them take her, he said, turning to the others, adrenaline and fear igniting a fire inside him. But what's the plan? Clara queried, wide-eyed and anxious. Ethan met Lila's gaze, understanding the unspoken question. They were deeper in the darkness than anyone could throw light on. We fight, he declared, voice steady. But first, we need to figure out what they know. Just then, a loud crash erupted from outside the room, followed by a scream that echoed like a bullet through the air. All eyes turned to the entrance, dread pooling in their stomachs. As if foretelling the next wave of chaos stemming from the shadows. What now? Ethan breathed, as a dark figure lurked at the threshold, hands raised in surrender but eyes filled with panic. What they know might just be the beginning. The tension swelled, a storm waiting to break as the figure stepped forward, face obscured by shadows, whispering the words that could change everything. "Ethan, we need to run. They're closer than you think." Ethan's heart raced as the figure emerged from the shadows, the urgency of the moment cranking the tension tight. The dim light skimmed across a face that was partially hidden, but the voice was unmistakable, a fragile echo from his past. It was Jenna, a maid from his former life, the one person he thought he'd never see again. "Jenna?" he croaked, disbelief washing over him. "What are you doing here?" "Ethan," she gasped, taking a step closer, her eyes wide with fear and urgency. "I know where Ryder is hiding. More importantly, I know what he is planning. You have to trust me." "Trust you?" Clara interrupted, her skepticism evident. "Why should we trust anyone from your past?" "Because I'm not here to hurt you." Jenna shook her head, her voice trembling. "I left that life behind, just like you did. I'm here for the same reason you are. To protect Lila." "Protect her?" Ryder's chilling laughter echoed in Ethan's mind as he remembered the man's threat. But deep inside, a flicker of hope ignited. Jenna hadn't come to harm them, she was still on his side, the only ally he had left from that dark world. "Tell us what you know," Ethan demanded, cutting through the suffocating silence. Jenna looked around the room, worry etched on her brow. "Not here. We need to get out before Ryder comes back. He has men watching. They could be within reach." Panic flickered in her eyes as she lowered her voice. "They have eyes everywhere. Where's south the safe place?" Lila stepped closer, her resolve firm despite the fear gnawing at her guts. "Just 1 block over to the old warehouse by the docks," Jenna replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's abandoned now, but no one would think to look there. We can regroup and figure this out." Ethan took a deep breath, the weight of his past pressing heavily on him. "Can we trust you?" he asked, his voice thick with skepticism. Jenna's gaze was fierce, determination shining through the shadows. "You have to. It's our only chance." Before anyone could respond, the loud thud of footsteps reverberated from outside, like thunder before a storm, causing the floor to vibrate underfoot. The room collectively held its breath, eyes darting toward the entrance. "Now!" Ethan urged, moving toward the door. He pushed it open slightly, scanning the dimly lit hallway beyond. It was empty, but they couldn't linger. "Go! Now!" he ordered, as the group hurried to follow him down the corridor. Lila gripped his arm, trying to keep pace, fear intermingling with something else, an unspoken trust in him, a shared resolve. They slipped into the night, the cool air hitting their faces as they emerged into the moonlight. The street was desolate, shadows stretching long across the asphalt, merging with the uncertainties that haunted them. "Head south," Jenna instructed, leading them toward the side alley that would take them to the docks, her movements quick and purposeful. As they dashed through the maze of backstreets, fear chased them, thick and palpable. Ethan felt the weight of every heartbeat, every rushing breath. The sound cut through the night, punctuated by the distant barking of a dog or the rustle of leaves in the breeze, reminders of how thin the veil of safety truly was. But with every step, he could feel the impending confrontation hardening, building towards an inevitable explosion. All he could think about was Lila. He wouldn't let them take her. Not again, not like before. "Who?" Clara gasped, panting as they rounded a corner. "Who do you think they're sending after us?" Ethan shrugged, not wanting to think of the answer. "It doesn't matter. We'll figure it out at the warehouse, right?" Just then, a deafening crash shattered the stillness as something or someone toppled against a dumpster behind them. The noise sent an electric shock through the group. Ethan's instincts kicked in. "Run! Keep going!" he yelled, pushing them onward as the weight of the night was suddenly counterbalanced by the piercing fear of being hunted. As they raced down the alley, he felt a sudden pang of dread. Were they truly safe, or had they just walked into a trap? Behind them, shouts echoed into the night, vicious commands blurring together as footsteps pounded ever closer. "Ethan!" Lila cried out, her voice piercing through the chaos. They tumbled into the safety of the warehouse, doors crashing shut behind them. Breathless and trembling, they leaned against the cool metal, hearts racing as the dark loomed outside. "What now?" Ethan whispered, just as a faint noise echoed from the shadows, a chilling reminder that they were not alone. "Whatever it is," Jenna warned, her eyes wide, "it's coming, and it's not just Ryder." The darkness was alive with possibilities, each more horrific than the last. A new wave of fear washed over him as he realized this was only the beginning. The warehouse felt cavernous and haunting as Ethan and the group huddled together at the edge of the darkness. The damp air hung thick with the stench of rust and decay, mirroring the tension that twisted their breath. Ethan glanced around, wide-eyed and alert. "Everyone, listen carefully. We can't panic. We have to figure out our next move." A low murmur swept through the group. Clara's face was pale, fear etched across her features. Lila remained steadfast, still holding onto Ethan's arm, fierce determination radiating from her. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jenna stepped forward, urgency pulsing in her tone. "We need to get information on Ryder and his crew. They're not just after you, Ethan, they want Lila too. It's all connected." The realization sank in like a stone in Ethan's gut. His past was clawing its way back into his life, threatening not just his future but also the lives of those he had come to care about. "How do we stop him?" he asked, frustration edging his voice. Jenna scanned the dim edges of the warehouse. "Depending on what he's planning, we have to be ready to face him head-on. I can reach out to a few contacts of mine. They know things. They can help us." "I'm not hiding anymore," Ethan declared, his voice suddenly steady. "If Ryder thinks he can intimidate us, he's got another thing coming." The group murmured their agreement, and in that moment, a flicker of hope coursed through him. They were stronger together, a united front against the shadows of his past. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the entrance, reverberating through the space, drawing their attention. Panic surged as they turned toward the noise. Were they too late to escape? Ethan's heart raced, every instinct screaming to act. "Everyone, get behind me!" he shouted, positioning himself protectively in front of Lila and Clara. As the entrance swung open with a creak, the figure that stepped inside was unexpected. It was Ryan, but this time the smirk had vanished. "I'm not here to fight," he said, hands raised slightly, "but you all need to listen." "Listen to you?" Ethan shot back incredulously. "Why would we? You're the one who caused this chaos." "I know," Ryan admitted, stepping further into the light, his expression serious. "And I'm here to help. Ryder's planning something bigger than you all realize." Confusion swept over the group like a fog. "Why should we trust you?" Clara questioned, arms crossed defensively. "Because I know how these things work. I know Ryder's tactics, his weaknesses." Ryan's eyes darted around, gauging their reaction. "If you want to stop him, you need to prepare." Ethan felt a surge of reluctance but also a glimmer of opportunity. "What do you know?" he demanded, cautious but intrigued. "Ryder has people around town, watching your every move. He's calculated. If we don't move quickly, he'll turn the whole town against you, use them as pawns." "Fine," Ethan replied through gritted teeth, "but no games, and no betrayal. We can't afford any more of that." Ryan nodded solemnly. "Agreed. I want to make things right, for what it's worth." With every second ticking away, Ethan's mind raced. They would need a plan. Strength in numbers and information was their only hope. "Okay, we meet back here in 1 hour. Jenna, can you reach your contacts? Yes, she replied firmly. I know exactly who to ask. We need to gather intel on Ryder's crew and his plans. Ryan, you'd better start talking and don't leave anything out. Ethan glared, challenging him to lay it all on the table. I will, Ryan replied evenly. But I need you all to trust me to do this right. As tension hung in the air, the group fortified their resolve. They weren't just fighting for Ethan's redemption, they were fighting for their town, their futures, and each other. Hope swelled within Ethan, igniting a quiet fire that promised to push through the darkness. Now let us get to work, he commanded. They dispersed into the shadows of the warehouse as adrenaline coursed through their veins, relentless resolve cloaked in fear. Ethan felt Lila's hand squeeze his tightly, grounding him, reminding him of what they stood to lose and fight for. The hour slipped away like sand through his fingers, but as they reconvened, eyes glimmering with determination, a breath of solidarity filled the air. There was no turning back now. Let us take down Ryder and reclaim our lives, Ethan declared, the thunder of his heart echoing within them all. As they moved forward, Ethan's thoughts settled into an echo of action. This was their moment to rise together against the past. And when they confronted Ryder, the storm brewing wasn't just about Ethan's journey, it was an uprising of the entire town, a battle against shadows that threatened to dim their future. As dawn began to break, illuminating possibilities from the darkness of night, Ethan felt something shift within him, a newfound strength, a determination to reclaim not just his life, but the lives of those he loved. They were ready. Together, he whispered to himself, the enormity of his purpose resonating like drums deep within. They would fight, not just for survival but for hope, for community, for the beautiful promise of tomorrow. Now was their time. As they braced for the battle ahead, they stepped out into the light, an unbreakable front ready to take on whatever challenges lay beyond. It wouldn't just be Ethan facing the ghosts of his past, it would be all of them, united and stronger than any secret Ryder could unleash. The world was about to watch fireworks light up the sky. This was it. With courage lacing his heart, Ethan knew that whatever happened from here, they would face it together. And that, above all, was the most powerful force they could wield. So here's a shout out to all you watchers out there. Don't you forget to support this channel. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next epic chapter in this crazy ride. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And if you've been enjoying this journey, flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this incredible conclusion. Now's your moment to shine. Instantly share this with at least 5 friends who need a taste of this adventure. Don't wait even one more second to spread the word. Only true fans understand the importance of backing this channel through these actions. Let us do this.